Welcome to Kadampa podcasts. These podcasts offer practical solutions to daily challenges and help guide us to a happier and more peaceful state of mind. In each episode, you will find an extract from a teaching given by one of various Kadampa Buddhist teachers worldwide. All these teachings are inspired by the profound wisdom of Venerable Geshe Khalsang Gyatso Rinpoche, a Buddhist master for our time. We hope you enjoy listening.
There are many difficult and unpleasant circumstances that we cannot avoid. But we can certainly avoid the unhappiness and anger these circumstances normally provoke in us. It is these habitual reactions to hardship, rather than the hardship itself, that disturb our day-to-day peace of mind, as well as our spiritual practice. It is these habitual reactions to hardship, rather than the hardship itself, that disturb our day-to-day peace of mind, as well as our spiritual practice. So, we know, or we can learn through our own experience, that difficult situations, difficult people, can only make us happy. No, sorry, wrong way. Difficult situations, difficult people can only make us unhappy if we respond to them with an unpeaceful state of mind. Okay? So you can, if we even understand that intellectually, how that's possible, we already see a path to mental freedom. Right? Because normally we think, if I want to have a good day, I need to avoid that person, and I definitely don't want to have that conversation with that person, like that, right? And that's how we're going to have a happy day. Because if I come into contact with these difficult people, difficult situations, I'll have no choice but to feel negative or unhappy. Because it feels like the external difficulty is giving rise to the bad feeling. But actually, it's not that external difficulty, but our habitual negative reaction to it that's giving rise to the unpleasant feeling. So, as our virtues like patience, compassion, wisdom, as those grow in strength, we will be able to accept and transform greater and greater difficulties. Okay? And not only just accept them, but for us they will become very meaningful because they will function to increase our inner good qualities. I've already told the story of the great master Atisha, but I'm going to tell it again because I love this story. So Atisha is one of our lineage gurus, and he lived around maybe it was at the 11th century? Yeah. And he was a great Indian Buddhist master who held the lineage of realization and scripture of all Buddhist teachings. Okay? And he was invited by the Tibetans to come to Tibet and to come teach Dharma. And so this great spiritual teacher, it took a lot of encouragement. Many people went encouraged, made many offerings to Atisha, please come, please come. And so he accepted because he wanted to help the Tibetan people. But he had to secretly leave his monastery and things like that because his students there wouldn't have wanted him to leave. But he left. He wanted to help the Tibetan people. He went there. And all the Tibetans, they were so faithful and devotional and so grateful to have such a qualified spiritual teacher that they all treated him with the utmost respect, not the slightest bad word or disrespect, everybody treating him with such great respect. Now Atisha came with some assistants, and one of them was a cook who was not Buddhist, but was his cook. And he was a pretty ornery person. Okay? Often had a negative attitude, could easily get frustrated. And he was Atisha's cook. And he would often yell at Atisha, be disrespectful. And so the Tibetans were witnessing this. Here's this rough, badly behaved, uncontrolled cook, being so disrespectful to our holy teacher, like this. So the Tibetans couldn't take it anymore. So they finally go to Atisha and they say, please, please, Master Atisha, there are so many faithful Tibetans who would be so happy to serve you. Please, could we get rid of this horrible man? Like this. And Atisha, he said to them, he said, oh, please don't say this. This man is very precious for me. Without him, how could I ever perfect my patience? But he meant that from his heart. You know why? Because he valued the inner protection of spiritual experience more than good external conditions, or even people treating him respectfully. Because his main wish was to improve his spiritual qualities, which alone lead to everlasting mental freedom and happiness. Okay? Mental freedom and happiness is possible, but not through following external paths. Internal paths of spiritual realization definitely lead to this. Atisha knew this very well. So he valued the inner protection of spiritual experience, improving his patience, compassion, and so forth, more than good external conditions, and even a good reputation or people's respect. So for him, his cook was very kind because he gave him the opportunity to improve his patience. His Tibetan followers, they were not objects of patience because they were always so kind and respectful to him. So he said, I need this man. I need him. And he loved him. He loved him. And from Atisha's point of view, because that man was his virtuous object, the object of his patience, okay? And then he never felt harmed by that person's disrespect, bad words, shouting. Never felt harmed, For him, it just increased his spiritual experience. Now, he was a great master, so we can't just expect this, because we're like, yeah, Atisha, you had one cook in your life. I've got a lot. I've got many cooks challenging my patience. Great, it's okay also to admit that right now I can't accept that. That's okay, Much better than blaming the other person, going, "You're horrible." It's okay to think, to try and accept a difficult person. And maybe we're a little bit successful. Maybe we're a lot successful. Maybe it's a hard day and I'm trying to accept this, but I can't. My mind's getting very negative. That's okay. Then we can think, I need to kind of remove myself from that object. But we're not doing it out of hatred or aversion. We're just accepting that right now, that's a little bit beyond our capacity to transform. That's very wise and skillful. I hope that makes sense. When we learn to accept difficult circumstances patiently, the real problem disappears. For example, suppose our body is afflicted with a painful illness. If we have a way of accepting the pain, for instance, by seeing it as a means of exhausting negative karma, our mind will remain at peace even though our body is in pain. Okay, so I want to make this clear. Karma, Buddhist teachings on actions and effects, virtuous actions giving rise to happiness, non-virtuous actions giving rise to suffering. This is not punishment, it's not reward and punishment. It's cause and effect. It's very different. Buddha is saying there's not some external force that's giving rewards and doling out punishment. It's the internal cause and effect of our minds, intentions, and actions, and the effects those produce. Okay? So therefore, in Buddhism, we never think if someone's suffering, they deserve it. That's complete misunderstanding. Of course they don't deserve it. No one deserves to suffer. But out of confusion, living beings create suffering by engaging in non-virtuous actions because their minds are controlled by delusions. Okay? So that's all objects of our compassion. And we should always try to help people who are suffering and try to help people avoid the causes of suffering. Geshe Kelsang dedicated his whole life to this, Okay, if we have a way of accepting the pain, for instance, by seeing it as a means of exhausting negative karma, our mind will remain at peace even though our body is in pain. So Buddha taught many methods for purifying negative karma before it ripens. And we can learn those and practice them. But another way to purify negative karma is to patiently accept whatever suffering we can't avoid. Because then what happens is our mind remains at peace, and then that negative karma ripens and then passes, and then it's like that long-standing karmic debt has now been paid off. Like that potential that was dormant in our mind has now disappeared, and because we accepted it patiently, we didn't create any new negativity. And that's a way of purifying our negative karma, is by accepting it patiently. And a spiritual practitioner can even develop a happy mind to be thinking, I'm so happy that I'm purifying this negativity. Okay? With training, we can develop those thoughts and actually mean it. Moreover, since physical pain is closely related to the tension and stress in our mind, as our mind relaxes, we may discover that physical pain actually subsides and our body is able to heal itself. This is so important. Because normally we respond to pain with a non-accepting mind. And then we get really tense. And our mind gets tense, and then our body gets tense. And then all sorts of other stress experiences come, and that's not a healing environment. Okay? But if we can accept that pain, thinking, actually this is beneficial, it's purifying my negative karma, and then our mind can be more peaceful, then our body can relax, and then there's great hope that the body can heal itself in that more peaceful state. Okay? Even if it doesn't, it's so beneficial, However, if we refuse to deal realistically with the discomfort, cursing our illness and letting ourselves become depressed, then not only will we have to endure the additional suffering of mental torment, but very probably our physical pain will increase as well. We can see, therefore, that responding to hardship with non-acceptance and anger only makes matters worse. By destroying our merit, which means our good karma, or positive potentials, we learned that in the first teaching. One of the invisible faults of anger is that it destroys our virtuous potentials that we've created in the past through virtuous actions. Okay, so it's like a fire in the mind that has the power to destroy our positivity and good fortune. By destroying our merit or positive potential in our mind, anger makes it very difficult to fulfill our wishes. And by causing us to engage in negative actions, it sows the seeds of greater suffering in the future. In short, anger destroys our present peace and happiness, robs us of future happiness, and ensures that we suffer in life after life. Oh, I have a few more minutes. I'll skip ahead a little bit. And this is on page 45 at the bottom. Whenever a wise person intent on attaining enlightenment, this means supreme inner peace. Whenever a wise person intent on attaining enlightenment encounters difficulties or adverse conditions, he or she endures these without letting them disturb their peaceful mind. So that's wonderful, but that's a huge accomplishment. Okay? So the way we start is, we start with like a small hardship, difficulty, and we try to accept it patiently without it letting disturb our mind. Okay? And maybe something that previously disturbed our mind only sort of disturbs our mind now. And that's progress. That's great. And if we keep practicing that, pretty soon that annoyance is no longer an annoyance. It's always an object of our patience. Okay? And then we can try bigger things. We can try when we get a headache. Or we can when there's like somebody's car alarm won't go off like that, right? And like the mind gets tense, or like I can't listen to that anymore, and you think, just try. I accept. Accepting mentally doesn't mean externally we don't try to do something if we can. Like maybe we know that person, we could knock on their door, whatever. It's not about the external action. It's about what is our mind doing. How's our mind reacting to this hardship? We can try to accept, get a little bit of experience, get some feeling of the mind. So the mind relaxes first, then the body relaxes. Okay? And then we feel that peace. And we realize I can be at peace in the midst of a hardship. And now, because I've accepted it, now it can become a powerful spiritual teacher for me, teaching me the faults of negative actions, the faults of samsara in general. It can also teach me that others are experiencing similar sufferings and far worse, And we can use it to improve our compassion, our renunciation, and our compassion. We should realize that our deadliest enemies are anger and other delusions. As these delusions are deeply ingrained mental habits, working to overcome them is not always easy. Anyone who has given up smoking or another addiction knows how hard it can be to go against the grain of our harmful habits. A certain amount of suffering is therefore inevitable in the course of our spiritual practice. But if we remind ourselves of the limitless benefits of overcoming our negativity, this will not be too difficult to bear. After all, the suffering involved in overcoming our negativity pales into insignificance when compared with the suffering involved in not overcoming our negativity. What's a good analogy for this? Oh yeah. So if someone came towards us with a very sharp metal object with the intention of piercing our arm, we would not let them do that. Okay? But if that sharp metal object had a medicine in it that was going to cure us of a painful disease, we would happily accept that small discomfort in order to avoid a bigger suffering.
If you feel inspired by this podcast, then dive deeper into timeless wisdom of modern Kadampa Buddhism by following the link in the episode description. We look forward to reconnecting with you in the next episode of Kadampa Podcasts.